Welcome, everybody, to Generally Nerdy. I am Dustin, this is my channel, and we are talking Star Wars today. Spoiler alert, if you have not seen this movie, I am going to talk about spoilerific details. So, if that's the kind of thing that doesn't go well in your little world, go watch the movie, come back and we'll have a conversation about it. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, retweet, all of that fun stuff. On Twitter, I am at generally_nerdy. On Instagram, I am at generally_nerdy, all one word. On YouTube, if that's where you're watching me right now, just look for Generally Nerdy. And on Facebook, facebook.com/generallynerdy. So, Star Wars. I had no idea what to anticipate for a non-episode movie. I had very little expectations because I knew there was going to be no Jedi. I knew there was going to be no crawl, so I was not surprised by the fact that there was no long text explanation scrolling across the screen at the beginning of this movie. If you are expecting a crawl with all of your Star Wars, you will be unpleasantly surprised because there is no crawl at the beginning of this movie. It doesn't need a crawl. It's not an episode. We know what's going on in the world. This is the movie that joins the prequel trilogy to the Holy Trilogy. So if you haven't seen those movies, why are you watching this one? This movie was amazing. Before I get into any of the minor issues I may or may not have had, we should just cover that part right now. This movie was fantastic. Very cool addition to the franchise. It kind of sets a pretty high bar for any of the future non-episode movies, because this, damn. Let's just get into the movie. This is a note for content. I left the movie last night, maybe 12 hours ago. Not even 12 hours ago. Went directly from the movie theater, drove for an hour to Denver, and interviewed Kevin Smith. So keep an eye out for the Kevin Smith video, because it's coming. Finally, we caught the time to sit down with old Kev, and then drove for another hour home, went to bed, woke up, and here we are. I'm on my way to work. So I don't have notes for specific plot points. I don't have notes for any of the actors or any of the character names that I didn't already know going into this movie. So my apologies for all of you super hardcore Star Wars nerds. Generally speaking, I do a little bit more homework. I just wanted to get this video up really quick. So, that being said, I loved this movie. You follow Jin. I can't think of the last name now. Her dad, the opening scene of this movie is a flashback for her for when she was a kid. Forrest Whitaker's character, he's a little overacted. I feel like there's a little bit of melodrama involved there. So, that was kind of whatever, because he's only on screen for maybe 5 minutes. It was kind of cool, though. I mean, he's a little 50 Shades of oh, damn it. Whatever, we'll cut that. So, you follow Jin as she's trying to find her father, effectively. Her father is the guy who designed the weapon for the Death Star, the planet killer That's No Moon Death Star. She gets abandoned as a child by her father to save her life, and Forrest Whitaker takes care of her until she's 16, we find out, and then she's on her own, and when we see her as an adult, she's in some sort of prison. She catches word that she gets broken out of prison by the rebels because they know who she really is, because she's going under assumed name. The rebels tell her that her father is alive and that he has finished his work, and that there is an Alliance pilot who has defected and is giving secrets to the rebels, to the Alliance. Wait. He is an Imperial pilot that is defected to the Alliance. Let me get my vocabulary straight. So this defector finds Forrest Whitaker. Again, the character's name eludes me at the moment. I'm running on about 6 hours of sleep, so my apologies. Finds Forrest Whitaker's character because he's very close with Jen's father, and tells him, I have secrets, I need very much to talk to you. And so, because he trusts no one and he's gone a little crazy in his old age, he sicks this crazy creature on him that effectively, he said the sad side effect is you'll go mad, or you'll lose your mind. So that thing can, make sure he's not lying as he's with his information. So long, very interesting, very well told story. And it's not even that long. It's only 2 hours and 15 minutes runtime. So it's fairly short in our world of epic blockbusters that last, hours upon hours, and wherein Netflix creates, 10-hour movies effectively, likewise with HBO. So in those terms, it's a fairly short movie. It's longer than your standard from a few years ago of an hour and a half. It's definitely more than 90 minutes, but only about 30 minutes more than the 90, because the last 10, 12 minutes is credits. But great movie. So couple of minor issues. Like I said, we follow Jen. She finds father. He tells her that there's a secret built into the Death Star. He has implemented a weakness that if they can just get any explosive into the core system, then the entire system will go down. And she finally gets back to the rebel base when she gets all this information and says there is plans for the Death Star that exposed this weakness on Scarif, this planet Scarif. I had no idea that the Death Star had other settings besides planet destroyed. But it does. They can do city destroyed. And that was really cool. They destroyed Jeddah. The Jedi Temple is poof gone. It's nuts. We see the fallen Jedi. I mean, at this point, the Jedi Temple's empty. It's not actually the Jedi Temple anymore. There are still protectors of the crystals that the Jedi use to make their lightsabers. But those crystals are key in the creation of the weapon for the Death Star. So the Empire is there taking all the crystals that are left. And one of the defenders of the crystals is a very force-sensitive little guy who is awesome. There are no Jedi aside from Vader in this movie. However, I wish I could remember his name because the character was so awesome. The character was so fantastic. Such a badass. Dude's blind, takes out an entire troop of stormtroopers. Like 12 of these dudes, and he's blind, and they've got blasters, and he's got a stick. And he destroys them. Also, on that note, there's a lot of death in this movie. A lot of death in this movie. Seemed a little weird that there was so much. I mean, obviously there's a lot of death in most Star Wars movies because explosions and gun battles and ships going down, but we don't necessarily see it happen in those other movies because, you know, it's a ship exploding or it's a battle scene where there's a lot of people shooting at each other, so there's no intimate moments of death. In this movie, there are quite a few intimate moments of death and violence. And being as it is technically a family movie, you know, it's Star Wars is generally geared to be kid-friendly, and, you know, that's how they make their money, so why wouldn't they? There's a lot of death. Matter of fact, all of the cast, all of the main cast of this movie dies by the end of the movie. In epic fashion, but still death and death and death. So, keep that in mind. None of them make it out alive. It's like a good horror movie. Only it's a good action sci-fi movie. So, yeah. So, she gets back to the Rebel Council, or the Alliance Council, however you want to term that, and tells them the plans are on Scarif, we have to go to Scarif, and they say, you have no proof, we don't trust your father because he works for the Empire, good luck, and God bless, or good luck, and may the Force be with you, effectively. And then all of their pilots decide that they believe her, and they want to fight, and that's what's going to happen. And so they go to Scarif, and they get in, and god damn, the AT-ATs on the beach that you see in the trailers, it's a big epic battle. They get in, they eventually get to the information. We get a reveal of Vader. So before we get to the Vader reveal, two minor issues before we get to Vader. One, and they're both effectively the same issue, just with different people. The first is Grand Moff Tarkin. He's in the movie. How cool! The dude who played him died years ago. So how did they do it? He's CG. I don't disagree with the fact that they did that. I do disagree with just the general capabilities of our technology. Because of the uncanny valley, Google it, because of that, like, we're almost to the other side of it. Like, I was wanting to not see that he was CG and just see that, hey, they recreated this, they recreated Grand Moff Tarkin, and it looks great. It did look great. It looks better than any video game. Generally speaking, that's my issue, is that, you know, if I want to play a video game, I'm going to play a video game. If I want to watch a movie, I don't want to see something that looks like a video game, unless the whole movie is computer generated. And then it's passable, but this movie is obviously live action. Most of the CG, they blend very well with practical effects. They do use a lot of practical effects. That is a key point of Star Wars, something that George Lucas definitely didn't understand when he did the prequel trilogy. But yeah, they use a lot of practical effects. So there is a stand-in for Grand Moff Tarkin, but when we see his face, it is definitely computer generated. And he's not Grand Moff Tarkin. This isn't the issue. The issue is the computer generated part. CG only goes so far. I feel like they could have done a couple of practical effects on a slim, older British gentleman, and then blended that with CG, and it would have been a little bit more believable. But either way, it was a very cool effect. And he's not Grand Moff at the beginning of this. He is Governor Tarkin, I believe is what they call him. And then the other part of that is they did the same thing with Leia. Again, understandable. Carrie Fisher does not look like she did 20, 30 years ago. What was it? Over 30 years ago. So, like, it was kind of a necessity. They didn't have... I don't. So a couple, I guess it was a couple months ago at this point, there were some pictures floating around the internet of what's his name, the guy who plays Bucky, Winter Soldier in Cap. I can't think of his name. He is going to play the young Luke Skywalker apparently, and he looks just like freaking Mark Hamill back in the day, except for probably a lot more built. So I mean, there is a possibility they could have found a double and passed it off that way, and then used the CG to make it that much more believable instead of just completely building them from CG. So that was kind of, take with it what you will. So the character, back to the movie, when we meet Vader the first time in this movie, it's what a reveal. I mean, and the initial little glimpse of him is a little kind of weird because he's in this like water chamber, like milky white water chamber, and so maybe he was taking a shower? I don't know. But you don't really see much of him. You kind of see the top of his head. You see like from his shoulder blades up from behind, and from in front you see kind of like his brow line up as the water drains from this tube that he's in with all the wires and stuff. So we see that, and they're telling him that the commander, I don't know what the guy is, I don't even remember the character's name. He very well could have been made up for this movie. I'm not super duper well versed in the extended universe stuff and in the extended mythology from before. So maybe he's a transfer from the previous mythology that they adopted, much like Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren existed before Disney owned the rights. So maybe this guy did too, and I just don't know who he is because I never learned the name of the guy who created the Death Star. Again, not Jin's dad. He's the one who created the weapon. This is the guy in charge of the entire project for the Death Star. He goes to see Vader. That's when Vader's little underling goes in and tells him he's here. Vader comes out of his shower bath pickling jar of life, and we see a shot of the helmet, which brings me to my next issue with this movie. Again, this movie was awesome. There's no two ways around that. Any issue I have is minor, so take it as a grain of salt. So we see the helmet, and you kind of realize this helmet is a little bit of a redesign, which is fine. Redesign the helmet a little bit, make it more wearable, make it more believable. Whatever you got to do it. That's cool. Though, keep it black. I'm not commenting about the chrome little screws that are in the front of the mask. Those have been on previous versions. It's not that I had the issue with. It's the goggles in the helmet are like a dark red color. And when they first show the helmet and it's not on Vader, you're like, did I see that right? And then Vader comes out, and the reveal for Vader, like, God, I'm so glad Lucas doesn't have this anymore, because he would just miss these beats. Even though he didn't even direct the second or the Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, I just feel like these beats would have been missed if he was still the man in charge. The reveal for Vader in his suit. So the door, it's these big, massive doors, and you know how some of the doors in Star Wars open like gates. So it's this big, massive door, starts to open up, and we see where Vader is standing. You know, there's this bright, bright light shining behind him. So all you can see is this dark pillar that indicates where Vader is standing. Flash over to the guy in charge of, the guy that's there visiting to, talk to Vader about the Death Star, and Vader says, there is no Death Star. We told the council that Jeddah collapsed under mining error, something like that. And that conversation was epic. James Earl Jones has the perfect voice for that character. Even though you can tell he's a little bit more aged by the voice, it's still the voice of Vader. So the reveal, gates opening up like so, we see where Vader is standing, flash over to the other guy. It feels so weird calling him that. And we see the light, because there's that bright light from behind Vader. So the light is shining against the wall behind him. And as the gate opens, you see this figure. And it's just immense. And then it opens up and you see the helmet. You can see the silhouette of the helmet and the cape. And it's so powerful, because not only do you have... they're making it look like he's huge, because the shadow it casts is seriously 15 feet tall. They're making him seem more physically imposing, but also you get the reaction on the face of the actor who is looking at Vader, or he is an actor, but the character, the guy, the general in charge of the Death Star. We get his reaction to Vader's reveal, and where once was confidence is now fear. And Vader makes the comment, something along the lines of about how he's afraid, and he claims to not be afraid, and then Vader steps closer to him, and just terror, just absolute terror. He is so scared of this character, of this figure before him. So, as epic reveal. Now, to the issue. So, the actor playing Vader, not James Earl Jones, but the guy physically inside the suit, needs to be large. That is not the issue. I feel like this guy was too bulky. Or they didn't hide it well enough with the costume that he was so bulky. Something. He was moving with a sort of ease or grace, if you will, that I don't think Vader has. I think Vader is probably one of the best villains ever created. Don't get me wrong. I'm not selling the character short. I'm not saying that the character is not also one of the best duelists. He can take on the best of them with a lightsaber. So he's got to have some grace. Understood. But this guy, I don't know, the movement seemed wrong. The physicality seemed wrong. Vader is he's basically powered by mechanics. He's part android, you know what I mean? So he shouldn't move with such ease. This guy did. And just, I don't know, it seemed off. There's no other real way to say it. The other issue that I had, it's kind of threefold. So the physicality, the guy in the suit itself, again, it didn't hide his bulk as much as I feel like it should have. And the chest plate was crooked, and it seemed really flimsy. It's Vader's friggin' chest plate. It's supposed to be solid, and the first time we see him in A New Hope, it was pretty cheap. And going back and watching it now, you can probably poke holes in it like I am with this guy, but they kind of fixed that as we went on. The suit, this chest plate, it probably would have been fine if it hadn't been crooked a couple of times. So, yeah, that was kind of a little off-putting. But, back to the helmet, the issue where when you first see it and it's not on him and you go, those eyes look a little off. And then he puts it on, and you can see into the helmet. There's a shot where there's light going at Vader's face, and you can see the camera angle is a little low, so you can't really see his eyes, but you can see his brow line and up to his forehead. So it was just a little off-putting. The helmet's supposed to be black. All the way through is supposed to be black. The eyes are supposed to be black. That's kind of part of the menace that it brings, is that there's no feature, there's no person behind that mask. It's just a mask, and it's this imposing, dominant mask. And you don't get that as much, because you can see the person inside the mask. So, again, minor detail. Just like the CG issue, minor detail in an otherwise epic movie. End of the movie, everybody dies. We see them use the Death Star on themselves. This is a Imperial-run planet, and they use the Death Star. It's just on one city, on Scarif, but it looks like that might be the only city on the planet. There's a lot of beach and greenery and a bunch of water, so maybe it's mostly ocean, and it's just this one area that actually has inhabitable land. It's not entirely clear, but they used the Death Star on themselves in order to stop this information leak, which they don't in the end stop. They broadcast from the planet up to the Rebel Alliance, big dogfight going on, epic battles. The action in this movie is totally on point. The humor in this movie, very also much on point. The script writers understand this universe so well and understand where it's appropriate to put a joke and where it's appropriate to be serious and where it's appropriate to do both. Alan Tudyk, I didn't realize was in the movie until probably night before last. He is the voice of K2, and he's brilliant. Alan Tudyk is one of my favorite comedic actors. Alan Tudyk is actually great action. Yeah, he's great in action movies, so it's a good role for him. Not that he does any action because he's just a voice, but fantastic. So, end of the movie. There's another Vader reveal because they're adding to the mystique of Vader. Big dogfight. They're up in space. Grand Moff Tarkin at one point tells somebody not to worry about the rebels, that Lord Vader will take care of them. What that means, who really knows until it happens. And oh my God, does it happen. So, the unbeknownst to the Empire, they get the information off of the planet for the Death Star, and they broadcast it to, I don't remember the race of people. It's General Akbar's people. I can't think of the race right now. But a very good example of them using practical effects and CG to smooth around the edges. But they get the information off, and now the rebels have to find a way to get out because the Empire is, holding them down effectively. And the main command ship gets docked, and they're blowing the TIE fighters knock something out that kills all the power to the ship after they've been docked. And you don't know who docks them. You just hear someone say, we've been boarded. And so the rebels with the silly hats, you'll recognize them from New Hope. The guy who knocks his head and then his hat's all goofy. No, anyway. So the rebels are shooting at the stormtroopers who are boarding, and then the power goes out. So there's this group of rebels shooting effectively into the darkness. And then the entirety of the power goes out, so it's just dark and they stop shooting. And then you hear the breath, and you know what's about to happen. And oh my God, every Star Wars movie, every Star Wars movie ends with a lightsaber battle. This movie has no Jedi in it, short of the Force-sensitive dude, who at this point is dead. And Vader. Technically, he's Sith, but still, that's a form of Jedi. So I was like, they didn't have the crawl at the beginning of the movie. They're not going to end with a lightsaber battle because there's nobody to wield a lightsaber except for Vader. And what the fuck's Vader going to do with a lightsaber in this situation? Oh my God, what did he do? Reveal. Darkness. Complete darkness. Looking down a hallway. Red saber. Darth Vader just standing there holding the damn saber, looking at these, 10, 12 rebels. Just, you weak worms, you have no idea what kind of death is about to rain upon you. He destroys these guys. As the power was going out, On the other end of this hallway, a door was closing, and the power dies. The door does not close completely, so one of the rebels can feasibly get his arm through to hand the information to the other side, where there's still a little bit of power, and they're still escaping. Banging on the door, help us, help us, help us. Vader behind him, they're shooting, they're blasting away. He's deflecting, he is using the Force to force push. He holds one guy to the ceiling with the Force while deflecting and just wreaking havoc on these poor dudes. Like I said, lots of death in this movie. Gets to the end of the hallway. The guy with the disc says, screw it, just take it. The other guy on the other side who was trying to help him push the door open, grabs it, turns, and runs. As he takes his first few steps, you see the tip of Vader's saber come through the door, approximately where the other guy who initially had the disc was standing. See his face go dead, and the door pushes open, and he falls off of the saber. So epic. And then they get the information to Leia. You only see her. You get used to Grand Moff Tarkin being CG. He's got about 10 minutes of screen time. You get used to that. You see Leia. She's completely CG as well. And it's kind of abrasive because we only see her for, 10 seconds. And she says it'll give them hope. And then the escape ship, or the life raft, whatever you want to call it, detaches from the main ship, and they shoot away into hyperspace, and credits roll. Oh my god. I didn't know what to expect, and Lord knows I did not expect that. Go see this movie. It's definitely a highly recommend. Thank you for watching Generally Nerdy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and retweet. Email me, generallynerdy@gmail.com. Twitter, @generally_nerdy. Instagram, @generallynerdy, all one word. Facebook.com/generallynerdy. Search for me on YouTube, Generally Nerdy. This has been Star Wars with Generally Nerdy. And remember, if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.